a lot of people had forced blinders on. Said, okay, we have to follow this model. It has to be this. It has to be on conformity. Let's not look for anything else. We don't want to be the same fruit stand. We want to be something new.
Does the Athabasca Basin need another uranium junior?
You know, Athabasca needs somebody who can actually produce. It doesn't need a discovery that's not going to go anywhere.
But you're saying we don't need another discovery. We need another discovery that can get into production. So what are you doing that's different?
Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. First of all, thanks so much for watching this video. If you like it, give us a thumbs up. It helps us to understand the sorts of companies that you think we should be spending our time, money and effort on for you. And obviously leave a description below to help us understand the sorts of questions you think we should be asking, how you think we've done, and of course what you think of the company. You can also catch this as a transcription, an article and a podcast on cruxinvestor.com. And of course for our Crux Investor Club members, you get early access to this video. And if you haven't already done so, please click the button in the corner of the screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, for more videos like this, click the notification bell. We speak today to James Sykes, who's CEO of Baselode Energy. It's the newest uranium story on the block. These guys are near the Athabasca Basin. There's also the guy who discovered the Arrow asset for NexGen. He's got quite a strong track record, really well liked and followed, quite young, smart kid, slightly different thesis from the norm, so an unconventional approach to uranium mining, and the key word there being mining. He thinks that he is after the types of formations which will allow a uranium company to get into production. As to say, he probably has strong views about what some of the other Athabasca Basin companies may or may not be allowed to do. But take a look in the description at some of the topics we discuss. Anything interests you in particular, click on the number beside the topic. That is called a timestamp, and I'll jump you to that part of the video. So enjoy what he has to say.
James, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Well, so it's great. We love a uranium story. This is a new one. It's a brand new uranium story. I'm excited. Where are you today?
I'm in lovely Saskatoon, middle of nowhere, Canada.
Middle of nowhere, Canada. Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm sure
as flat as can be out here.
I'm sure it's prettier than that.
In the summertime, when the canola fields are nice and yellow, yeah, it's pretty gorgeous. And you've got blue skies.
Right.
Pretty nice.
So how long have you been there then?
I've been out here since 2006. Got a job at Denison Mines right away. Moved out here with my wife, and we started our family out here, and just keep growing, keep populating. And we love, I personally love being up in northern Saskatchewan exploring. So it's a good backyard to have.
Right. Okay. Well, when we kick off, give us that 1 minute overview of what it is that you've got, and then we'll pick it up from there.
Yeah, perfect. So Baselode Energy, we are a new uranium exploration company with a focus in northern Saskatchewan, the Athabasca Basin area. We incorporated back in June of this year. So again, we haven't been around for a long time, but we do have the right team built to make a discovery and go forward and bring our investors along for the ride.
Okay, short and sweet. Talk to me about you, if you don't mind. What's your experience, track record, history? You've told us you started off at Denison Mines, but what have you done?
I don't know what I've done. I think I've done a lot, but so I started off at Denison Mines, junior geologist, just new into the industry, but I worked with a very interesting group, a very knowledgeable group, who laid out the exploration program that led to the Phoenix and Griffin discoveries. So learning from that at a very young age in my career, I thought was a great step forward. Jumped from Denison Mines to go to Forum Uranium to learn from some of the best uranium geologists in the business. And I'm very happy that I did that because I got to pick their brains quite a bit. So, and just continue evolving and honing my trade as I go along. 2008 hit, unfortunately, when I was at Forum. So they almost went belly up. But to preserve cash, they had to let me go. But at the time, Hathor Exploration had made a discovery. And so they got me on to Hathor. And then from there, I picked up on the logging, working on a deposit. It was something new. And so I just kept honing my skills. I'd go out to the Corax, every possibility. Just kept looking and trying to learn as much as I could. Hathor got bought out by Rio Tinto. And I'm not a big company guy. I'll admit that. I like juniors. I like things being able to move fast without a lot of bureaucracy. So after Rio Tinto, I found this little company called NexGen Energy. NexGen was just building up a team. So I got on with them. I liked the project they had even before I joined, and everything looked good. We liked geophysics that was already done. I brought on a couple of colleagues. We built our team around there, and then we made a discovery pretty quickly. Within a year of being with the company, we discovered the Arrow system. So that was a nice, surprise. We're very happy with what we did. But then following NexGen, I just thought the time was up there and started floating around. Eventually made my way to another company, Appia, which I'm actually still a part of Appia Energy as their VP. We're mostly focused on rare earths nowadays, but high-grade rare earths, can't complain about that. It's a wonderful thing. And then with Baselode Energy. So back in February of this year, Stephen Stanley, who's with Ore Finders, but he's also the chairman of Baselode, approached me. And yeah, he asked if I wanted to join on to Baselode and be the CEO of the company, since I've got a pretty reputable following and I seem to know what I'm doing. So that's where we are.
Okay. So where are you spending your time, Appia or here?
Both.
Well, equitably?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
50-50?
Yeah, that's, well, with Baselode, obviously Baselode is a little bit different. Much more responsibilities on the go, but I'm still chief technical guy for Baselode and for Appia. Just bringing on some people underneath me as well into both companies to really move everything forward.
So what does that look like going forward? So say Appia hits something big, do you go back to full time on Appia and leave Baselode, or no?
So I'd do both.
Right.
There's enough people out there in the world that you can have people in different positions. That's the way I see it anyway. It shouldn't be one man doing everything. So that's what I take away from it all. I definitely want to stay in both. I love uranium exploration. I want to get my hands on as much of it as possible. I've told myself that my goal is to reach 1 billion pounds of discovery. So I'm halfway there. I want to see that through. The more opportunities that I have that can pass my way, I don't see why I wouldn't want to take those.
Okay.
I'm uranium bullish and always will be to the very end. I believe in nuclear energy. It's the best energy source out there. I just want to see more uranium discoveries being made, something that can go into production.
Does the Athabasca Basin need another uranium junior?
Athabasca needs somebody who can actually produce. It doesn't need a discovery that's not going to go anywhere, and that's the big problem. This is where the whole baseload strategy comes in with what we're doing. Athabasca 2.0.
Tell me about this, because what you just said is very interesting. It's going to make a lot of uranium or wannabe uranium investors think. So there are a lot of discoveries already, but you're saying we don't need another discovery. We need another discovery that can get into production. So what are you doing that's different?
Well, we're focusing on the basement rocks, and the way that we're going to focus on the basement rocks is quite different. So to understand the Athabasca Basin, I've done my research. There have been people before me who have done the same thing, and I've kind of built on what they've done. But if you look at the history of the Athabasca Basin, the original explorers, the original deposits that were mined were outside of the basin. So in the basement rocks, no sandstone cover, no nothing. You can get in there with a drift, you can open pit it, simple stuff like that. And then you had your Key Lake and your Collins Bay deposits, which are right on the Athabasca Basin margin. So they're still shallow enough that you can have an open pit. It's once you start getting deeper, even deeper than 100 meters of sandstone cover, then you run into problems. You have to remember the Athabasca Basin itself, it's a water infiltration system. It's a basin. There's water in there, and that water inflows because these sandstones are porous. Let's look at some of these mines. Cigar Lake, discovered in 1980. When did it get into production? 2016, 36 years later? Investors aren't going to wait around for 36 years to see a discovery go into production. McArthur River, best uranium mine in the entire world. It's flooded twice. Yes, they've got it all under control now, but again, it's a geological engineering nightmare. You have to freeze your ground. That's not cheap. It's expensive. The only reason they're going after McArthur is because it is such a high-grade deposit. And same with Cigar Lake. They're high-grade, high tonnage. That's the only way you go underneath the sandstone to mine it. Otherwise, you are restricted, and you're restricted to the basin margins, or you need to get out of the basin itself and look in the basement rocks. Uranium City District, 60 million pounds of uranium came out came out of the Uranium City area. These are well outside the basin, but and that was the original discovery. That was the original uranium discovery. No one's followed up on those kind of ideas. So we're going back to those ideas. We're looking for the basement rocks. We're looking for something that is, near surface. Doesn't have to be at surface. That's fine. You can be 100 meters below beneath the surface, and boom, there's your open pit. If the grades are definitely there, then that's what really moves everything forward. But when you actually look at the entire basin and outside of the basin, there are a number of basement showings, that do have pretty significant grades. They're not on the right structural trends, which again, this is where the story of the Athabasca again kind of evolves. Back in the 60s and 70s, I guess once the unconformity style of uranium mineralization was discovered, that's what people were after. It became the model, and you didn't look for anything else. You looked for mineralization at the unconformity. So between the 60s, 70s, 80s, you can go back and look at old drill records. They would stop 10 meters beneath the unconformity. Like, guys, look into the basement rocks. Cameco had actually drilled the Rough Rider deposit that Hathor had, but they stopped 10 meters into the unconformity. If they would have continued drilling another 10 meters, they would have intersected mineralization. It's just like that. So there was a lot of a lot of people had horse blinders on. They said, okay, we have to follow this model. It has to be this. It has to be unconformity. Let's not look for anything else. And I think that has kind of misled a lot of exploration over the past 30 to 50 years. And personally, I think there's been a lot of wasted money in that. Now people have to go back and start reassessing these projects. But we're just trying to beat the whole punch.
Okay, so let me ask James. So I get it. It's interesting. It's really interesting. So if you were given the choice of discovering another arrow, which you discovered, right? That's what your reputation is based on,
yep,
versus going after the strategy that you're employing, what would you choose?
I'm looking for arrow in the basement rocks.
Right,
but you have to remember arrow.
I'm saying, but it's different. It's different, right? I'm trying to say, arrow as is. Would you want a project which replicated exactly what arrow is versus what you're telling me you're after now? What would you choose?
That's a tough question because again, I'm looking for arrow in a different jurisdiction, and we will get to this about why I think Shadow has another arrow. But arrow itself is within the basement rocks. There's a little bit of a signature at the unconformity, but the bulk of arrow is 100 meters beneath the unconformity. The only reason we really discovered it, we had great geophysics, but when we went into it, we decided that we're not going to sit there and drill 50 meters beneath the unconformity. We're going to drill 200 meters into the basement rocks and let's see what's there. Let's really test the basement rocks and it worked. But yeah, arrow's in the basement, completely hosted in the basement rocks. And if you let nature do its work, so you have all this glaciation and you erode all the sandstone and you erode, let's say 50 meters of basement rocks, well, then if you had arrow outside of the basin, arrow would be that much closer to the surface. Here's your open pit. Arrow open pit. That's what we're after. Even, arrows, I would say an arrow or a McArthur River is definitely the cream of the crop. To be a little bit more realistic, even something that's 50 million pounds is very lucrative.
So what's this saying? Because you're near to surface, you think that the type of mine that, assuming you can find what you think you can find, it's going to be cheaper, more efficient, and more likely to become a mine? Is that what you're saying? And therefore, presumably also there's a permitting issue there, because you have referenced it earlier. Some of the timelines here are quite extraordinary around the Athabasca Basin, because people are concerned about what problems could arise. So what is your solution? Not have to worry about permitting as a problem or finance as a problem?
Again, that's where we prove something that is economic at a shallow type of jurisdiction or shallow type of geological setting. Permitting, I'm actually not too worried about. Again,
why? That's a big statement in Canada. That's a real big statement for
uranium
in Canada.
It is. But
tell me more.
Yeah, but again, if you look at Athabasca, Athabasca, why are there permitting issues? Because they're all deep. Because all these deposits are being discovered underneath the sandstone, or they're close to big lakes with drainage systems that affect First Nations. Our projects are uniquely situated that we ignore all those types of scenarios. So again, if we can discover something with enough tonnage, sufficient grade, something that passes a PEA, these are the type of projects that I can honestly see the government going ahead and saying, yes, we will grant you guys a permit. It's just a matter of making discovery and turning it into a reality. Whereas our peers can be searching for things underneath the sandstone. And, have fun, guys. Make your 100-pound discovery and wait 20 years, 30 years for a permit.
Okay, that's interesting. I think that's going to be controversial in with regards to uranium investors, because, as you say, there's a kind of conformity to the thinking about what it's going to take, because these are high-grade projects, right? So high-grade projects equals success, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, absolutely. And that's why the Athabasca it's the best uranium jurisdiction in the world. High grade is king, and it works very well for Athabasca. So the grades from Cigar Lake and McArthur River are the highest value of any commodity in the world per ton.
Right.
It's that amazing.
So they will be mines.
Oh, Cigar Lake, McArthur River are already mines.
No, I know that, but I'm talking about some of the names that you were talking about. Arrow, is that going to be a mine?
I honestly don't know. I don't know what they're doing on their side of things. We'll see. I don't see why not. Again, it's uniquely situated in the basement rocks, high grade, large tonnage. It should theoretically be a mine. But again, if you want to think about what the most successful, again, in my opinion, what the most successful uranium mine has been in the Athabasca, Key Lake. Key Lake was about 200 million pounds, high grade. But I think if it weren't for Key Lake, I don't think McArthur River would have ever gone ahead, because Key Lake, you had the mill installed to process all of that ore. So the mill was there, the infrastructure was already there. McArthur River was just a discovery, and let's use those facilities that are already existing that we own. It was a very simple scenario.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
but
so
I want to. No, I agree with you. Key Lake was key, but what I'm trying to get at is you made a big statement, a big opening statement at the beginning. Said, if you want to effectively back a company who's going to find something that's going to get into production, like baseload, you're comparing it to companies presumably therefore that you think aren't going to get into production. So who are those companies? Maybe not by name, but what is the nature of the company or companies that you think won't get into production? You think the deep underground, but what else?
Any company that is exploring within the sandstone itself. If you're deeper than 100 meters sandstone cover, I think it's going to be challenging for anybody to move those into a mine. And again, that's why Arrow is kind of unique, because it's shallower than 100 meters sandstone. But anybody else, I really see that as being a problem. And that's something that I do not want to see Baselode get into. I want us to be the efficient explorers. I want us to be the efficient extractors when it comes down to that point, after the big discovery is made.
Yeah.
So I want our shareholders to reap all the benefits.
Okay. And can I ask a little bit about what you've got today? What do you know about what you've got today? And why are you so confident about what you're going to be able to do?
That's an interesting question. I wish we haven't done any exploration on either of our properties. So we've got two properties, Shadow and Hook. I'll focus on Shadow just because Shadow was an idea. Again, when Stephen kind of approached me, he said, we're looking for something unique. We're looking for something to really build a company around. We don't want to be like everybody else. We want to come out there with some new ideas and new thinking just to get people interested. So I put my thinking cap on and cracked open my head a couple times to see what's in there. And I guess I started really looking back at the government geophysics, at the regional geophysics. And a couple things really caught my eye. So again, when you're looking for uranium in the Athabasca, yes, they were called unconformity style deposits, which was the worst thing they could have ever done because they're actually structurally controlled deposits. All of these structures are coming from the basement rocks again, which is why the basement is so important. So now you don't need the sandstone cover. Basement rocks control the uranium mineralization. They control the structures, control where everything's in place. So let's look for these big structures. McArthur River has a very deep structure, the P2 fault. You can trace it with seismic, you can trace it with MT. It is a very deep system, so it's a plumbing system. So we are looking for the same type of things, very big structural system. And in doing so, when I was looking at the region, I noticed the Virgin River shear zone. That's a huge tectonic structure. So two mountain belts coming together. You can kind of think of it as India meeting up with China and forming the Himalayas that we see today. So it's that kind of scenario. Big, massive structure. We know the roots go deep there, just again by the sheer size of this. And that's a structure that has uranium already on it, to the north of the basin, on the south end of the basin, near the middle of the basin. So we know it's a fertile corridor. So good, deep structure, large structure. We've got conductors on this structure, which again is very important for uranium exploration. We've got, there's uranium on this, so everything's looking really good. The other thing that I noticed, and I wish I actually had some visuals for this, I'll be working on a presentation to show people the technical sides. I can try to really show them what I'm seeing. But with Shadow, there's a massive rotated block, and this is a regional feature. You can see similar type of things when you look at thin sections, so microscopic studies. And typically you see them as garnets or feldspars, and they're rolled. And then along that roll, so if you have a grain like this and rolling, and then because it's shearing like this, so along these tails, or along these margins, you get these tails that spread out. So those tails are mostly comprised of your hydrous minerals. They're all crushed up minerals, so there's been a lot of structure and reactivation within there. That's where you get your fluids. So I've identified that on a regional scale. So we're talking hundreds of kilometers. So we've gone from microscale to regional scale. I work a lot in the fractal world, so I understand that when you see things happen at a certain scale, it should repeat in every scale thereafter, whether we're going up or down. So we're seeing the same type of system here. We can see the structure. Arrow, so here's our big ball. Arrow's up here. Shadow is down here. We're on the same ball, and both of which are happening where you start getting this system come and dilate. So it's at that dilation that we're really, really focused on. Because again, dilation is a vacuum. You take rocks, you break them up, you're creating pore space, you add fluids to that. Where's the fluid want to go? Does it want to stay just on the hard rock? No, the fluid is going to go where the pore spaces have been created. Again, it's a vacuum. If you've got uranium in these fluids, uranium will migrate to this area. So we identified this, we've staked it right in this perfect location. Now we've got a confluence of structures happening in there, regional structures where we have fabrics going from the northwest, bending into this northeast, massive fold system, structural system. It's gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. I like to think I'm a good geologist, but I've gone over and above and beyond on this one. So I'm very happy about Shadow. I think Shadow has definitely got the makings of being a very major discovery. Again, we haven't done any geophysics on it. Nobody's ever done any work on this property. This is completely outside of the box thinking. And I think that's what we wanted to do when we got into Baselode, and that's what we've done. But it's completely outside the box, but it all makes sense. It's the right structure. We just need to prove this up. So we are looking at flying an airborne MT survey. A lot of people don't know what MT is. Basically, it's we can call it resistivity, which a lot of people understand, or some sort of EM method. So we will be mapping that out, and once we get the results from that, obviously we'll release them, but try to use that to really pinpoint our next steps going forward.
That's the happiest you've been for the entire interview.
Oh yeah, you get me talking about rocks and geology.
You're back in the zone, right? You're back in the zone. Okay. Do you think what's going to work in your favor here? When the uranium market gets moving again, and you get generous investors excited about uranium again, or do you think the reverse is true? The fact that your unconventional thinking is going to be a barrier to people thinking about you as an investment?
I don't see that as actually being a negative. I think being the unconventional and the new guys, I think does have a lot of. I think a lot of investors will take a liking to it. Myself, I know I've got kind of like an investor posse that have been following me around since NexGen days, even Hathor days, and yeah, they're happy with everything that I've done. They've made money off the companies that I've been with, so I know some of them even come into Baselode too. But the story spreads. People like what they see, so word of mouth we feel is probably one of the best ways to get the news out there. Again, doing shows like this, letting me get animated about Shadow, it's great. This is the kind of stuff we do. So being outside the box, I think this is something that investors would appeal to, or have investors, be interested in. We don't want to be the same. We don't want to be the same fruit stand. We want to be something new.
Okay, tell me about the money position at the moment. How much cash have you got?
Cash, we're sitting at around $500,000 to 700,000. Is sufficient enough to get us going on our exploration, which down the road, obviously, we wouldn't need to do a financing.
When?
September, October, kind of on the plans right now. Again, we'd like to get this airborne survey done first over Shadow, and have historic assessment work done over Hook before we get the next steps and really plan on what needs to be done on those and kind of figure out how much we need. But obviously, while the timing is right, seems to be right now, we would like to get like to raise the money while it's out there.
Yeah, I imagine you do. What sort of quantum will you be looking for?
$1.5 million, $2 million, maybe even more.
All right, so keep it tight. Okay. I mean, I know most of the structure, corporate structure at the moment is quite tight because you haven't done too much around with financing. It's a tight ship. So how many people are involved in this? Who's doing all the work? Are you VP of exploration, T-Boy, and in charge of promotion as well? I mean, how does it work?
Kind of, yeah. So I'm doing the bulk of the work, but we've got a great team behind us. So again, Stephen Stewart, who with Ore Finders, this is his brainchild, and yeah, I really enjoy working with him. He's been doing a lot of the whole administrative financing side of things. Myself and one of our directors, Charles Beaudry, who's got plenty of years experience as a geologist, has worked in the Athabasca back in the 70s. So he and I are basically tag teaming the technical side of things. We've got our other directors. So Gotham, he does a lot of our IR and just other work on the side. Everyone has a role to play, and so we've been spreading it out nicely, and it's working very efficiently. Bringing on some junior guys to do some technical work. So again, everything is moving along nicely.
So the costs between now and the fundraise are just salaries, really, are they? I mean,
yeah.
Right. Okay. So what's the G&A running at now?
Right now, it's actually pretty well zero. Just all of the administrative fees, so not including salaries. I haven't collected anything. I know Stephen hasn't collected anything. None of our directors have. So we're trying to get the ship sailing first before we can.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, that's encouraging to hear. You were brought in. Did you have to buy shares, or were you given shares? Both. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How much of your money have you spent? Your own cold, hard-earned cash?
It's actually a good question. 50,000.
Okay. So not significant, but say, and will you continue to buy in the open market when this thing gets going?
We'll see. We'll see about that. I do have a mortgage to pay, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, it's I've done this for other companies as well. Really get the ball rolling, and to me, that's the important part. Once the ball's rolling, then we can kind of lay back and figure out where things go from there. Being with Appy as well, so I can divvy up my costs, my expenditures.
Okay, understood. I guess it's early days. Yeah, you are young, and from what I'm hearing is you did the hard yards well. The other people benefited. That's nice. But your reputation is goes before you, so I think that's something to be extremely proud of. Let's talk about September when you do raise more money. This $1.5 million to $2 million. What do you want to try and achieve? What are you going to have to do to get the market excited about the potential here?
I think that would mostly be just show them what we have out of what we've completed so far. That's obviously all we can do. And again, it's the shadow story for me that's really going to pump us going, or pump me up anyway and get us going. Once Hook gets up to the same type of speed, then we'll have 2 aces in our deck. So 2 aces in our hand. But yeah, to get to that stage, well, we'll be doing that. We'll have it all completed shortly, and then we'll be able to analyze what we can do with that. Are we going to be drill ready right away? I have a very strong feeling that we could be. And again, this is where we're kind of leaning more towards just a higher end of investment.
Right. Okay.
of a private placement. So we want to get to drilling. Everyone wants to see drilling. I want to see drilling. That's where you get the real results. You can't throw out a deposit based on just geophysics alone. You need the truth machine. So we need to drill. And that's what we are working towards. If we can be drill ready by the end of this year, perfect. Winter is the best time to drill up in the Athabasca Basin area. So going from December into March next year, that's where we want to be cash position for, not only just for Shadow, but also for Hook.
Okay. So
based on what we find.
You say you've got a small posse of people, I don't know whether they're retail or institution or what, but following your retail, following your success. And that's great. But, at some point your unconventional nature is going to need to appeal to the wider market. I suspect the way the uranium market is at the moment, there's probably not, I think some people have been able to raise some capital. Some exploration companies have been able to raise a little bit of capital. Do you feel confident about this 2 million?
Absolutely. Oh, I feel confident about more. Now is the time. This for those who have not invested into uranium, I think you guys are missing out on the biggest possible investment opportunity of your lifetime. You hear all these stories about people who made out big in 2006, 2007, and there was a very good reason for it. That market was primed for the uranium spot price to just shoot through the roof, and that's exactly what it did. Paladin was a great story, from pennies to dollars. Absolutely fantastic. But now if you look at what's happening today, it's the same situation, only better, much better. Because all of the people who were producing back in 2006, they're not producing anymore. There's nobody producing in the States. There's nobody producing in Australia or Africa or Canada. Even the Kazakhs have shut down production for a few more months now. There's nobody producing uranium. And you've got all these contracts that need to be signed. From the people I've talked to, there was already a deficit slated for 2021. Now with all of these mine shutdowns, that deficit has grown. So supply side, there's no supply, and you've got a higher demand. There's more nuclear builds going on. There's more nuclear energy being used in the world. This demand is higher than what it was in 2006, but supply is less. It's simple economics. So I honestly foresee this spot price going much higher. And this is where investors and the institutions, they're recognizing it. They're getting on board with it. And this is how I think, I think we'll have no problem raising money, especially with some additional information at our backs with Shadow and Hook. I think we'll be able to really tell the story. Like you said, I've got a good track record. I believe I know what I'm doing. And with Shadow and Hook, these are both 2 excellent properties that have the makings to be the next Athabasca discovery and mine. Important word right there, the mine.
There's the key. Key. I mean, that's what I've heard in this story. You believe that your thesis will allow you to create a uranium asset which can be mined. And you think that others are going to struggle to get the permits and be mined economically.
It's the trick of it all.
There's the trick of it all. Well, look, James, thanks very much for running through that. I appreciate that. New story. First time we've caught up. Nice to hear. You've got a little bit of work ahead of you. So pick up the phone, let us know how you get on.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be my honor.